Good morning, everyone. In the last session, we understood how to develop a form-based application by using this Spring Boot, right? All of you able to develop that application?
Yes.
Yeah. Are you able to capture the form data also?
Yes, sir.
How we captured the form data?
Using post request.
Get parameters.
Using request.get parameter, we are able to capture the form data. So we are able to complete our task. We developed a form, we submitted the form, we captured that form data, and we are able to display the data on the console. If you see this program, if you observe this program, is there any problem available in the code, or there is no problem available in the code?
This problem is available, sir.
What is the
Boilerplate code. Request
Sorry?
get parameter.
Request
Always
get
we have
parameter.
by
Right. Here, manually, I'm capturing the form data. Manually, I'm capturing the form data. So in the entire project, are we going to have only one form, or we are going to have multiple forms?
Multiple forms.
Multiple forms.
In the entire project, are we going to have one form, or we are going to have the multiple forms?
Multiple
Come on,
forms.
guys.
Multiple forms.
Multiple forms.
Are we going to have one form, or we are going to have the multiple forms? We are going to have the multiple forms. So for every form, we need to write the same piece of code to capture the form data or not?
Yes.
For
Yes.
every form, we need to capture the same data, right? Now, if I have 100 forms, in 100 places, I need to write the logic to capture the form data. So now, instead of doing this, what I want to do is, whatever the form data you submit, I want to capture the data directly into my object. I want to capture the data directly into my object. Okay. Now, simple thing. Here, I'm going to use one more controller. That is user new controller I'm going to create. Okay. User new controller class I'm going to create. User controller.java is available. I will make a class. I will make one more class in the same project. User new controller. User new controller. Okay. Now in this user new controller, I will make it as a version 2. I will make it as a version 2. So for this, at the class level, I'm going to configure one URL pattern @request mapping @request mapping request mapping slash v2 v2 slash form v2 slash save user, like this I'm writing. Now as I want to capture the data in the form of object, I'm going to create one model class called contact. New class, I'm going to create a class with a name called contact. I will keep this class inside the model package. I will keep this class inside the model package. Click on finish. Now in this, what are the values that we are capturing from the user? Sorry, it is not
Values.
user. It is not
UID.
contact. It is user. Let me rename this class user. Okay. Now here I'm going to take private integer user ID, private string username, then private long phone number. Okay. Maybe it is UID, it is uname, it is uphone. It is uphone. Okay. Now, can I use lombok for these variables? So if I use @data, what will happen here, guys?
Setter and getter.
If I use @data, setters and getters will be generated. If I use @data, setters and getters will be generated. Public class user, private integer user ID, private string username, private long uphone number. Okay, I used this lombok. Now go to new controller. New controller. I don't want to capture this form data at all. I don't want to capture this form data at all. And I don't want to take this request object also. Simply I will take user object as a parameter. Simply I will take the user object as a parameter. Okay. So earlier in the old controller, what we have done, we have taken HTTP servlet request object as a parameter. We are capturing the form data manually. We are capturing the form data manually. When it comes to this, here, I am not taking that HTTP servlet request object manually. I'm taking user object as a parameter. I'm taking user object as a parameter. Okay. Now, am I writing any logic to capture the form data, or I'm not writing any logic to capture the form data? Am I writing any logic to capture the form data, or I'm not writing any logic to capture the form data?
Not writing.
Not writing.
Writing.
Not writing any.
Writing.
Not
Not
writing.
writing the capture the form data.
Okay. So we are not capturing the form data, but let me write one simple option: system.out.println, system.out.println user. Just I'm printing that user object. Just I'm printing that user object. Now tell me, form data will come to this user object, or form data will not come to this user object?
How to come?
Will come, sir.
Will not.
Will not come, sir.
Will not come, sir. Will not come.
Will come or will not come?
Will not come, sir.
Not come.
Check it. Check it. Let's start our application. Go to src main web app views index.jsp. Earlier it is calling save user. Now it has to call v2 save user. v2 slash save user. That is version to save user new controller method we are trying to access. Okay. New controller method we are trying to access. Go to this application, run as boot app. Yes, our application is started. Now, access our application, localhost colon localhost colon 9090 slash v2 slash load form. v2 slash load form. Okay, it is going to load the form for us. It is going to load the form for us now. So here 101 I show phone number. Now see the console.
Some noise is coming.
See the
Some
console.
noise is coming, sir, background.
Yeah, you people are. I need to keep everybody in the mute, man. I kept everybody in the mute now. Now see here, I fill the data in the form and I'm clicking on submit button. So when this form is submitted, it is calling v2 slash save user. That is the URL pattern available for the new controller. This controller method is taking two parameters. First one is the user object. First one is the user object and first one is the user object and the second one is the model object. First one is the user object and second one is the model object. Now, whatever the user object is there, I'm printing that user object on the console and I'm returning some message. Let me submit this. Save user. Save user. This application has no explicit mapping for the error as a fallback. I think so. Whenever you submit this form index.jsp v2 slash save user, it is unable to recognize that. Slash v2 slash save user. Or else let me do one thing, save user new. I'm giving this as save user new. The index.jsp, I'm giving as save user new. Clear the console. Clear the console. Yeah. Go back. Refresh. Stop this. Let me start the server again. It is failing. Load user form method is mapped to same. Okay. There is two methods binded to same URL. It is load form new, save user new. Now let me restart my application. I have changed the URL patterns, guys. Run as boot app. Yeah, clear that console. Clear that console. Yeah. Here I will give load form new. Form is loaded. Fill the data. Now clear that console. Save user. Now user saved successfully. Are we able to get the form data or not? Guys, now tell me, are we able to capture the form data or not?
Yes, we are
Yes,
able
sir.
to.
We are able to capture the form data or not?
Yes, sir.
Earlier, if you see the old controller, manually we are capturing the form data by writing request.get parameter. Manually, we are capturing the form data by writing request.get parameter. And the second one, when we go for a new controller, am I writing the logic to capture the form data, or I am not writing the logic to capture the form data?
Not
Not
right.
right.
Writing.
We are not writing any logic to capture the form data, but form data is coming to our object, or form data is not coming to our object.
Yes, coming to.
Coming, sir, coming.
Who is capturing the data and who is storing into this object?
User store.
Dispatcher servlet.
Dispatcher servlet.
Dispatcher servlet is capturing the form data and it is storing the data into this object. That is called form binding. So what is the advantage of going for Spring MVC? Form binding is an inbuilt feature, or we need to bind that form data to the object.
So inbuilt feature, sir.
Form binding is an inbuilt functionality in the Spring MVC. Not only form binding, there is a flexibility in the form binding also. Whenever you transfer some data over a network, everything will go as a string. Whenever we transfer the data over a network, everything will go as a string. But if you see in our user object, everything is a string, or we are having a long variable also.
Long variable also.
String, or we are having a long variable also.
Long variable
Long
also.
variable.
Long variable. So is it converting that string value to the long variable before storing the object or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it is converting.
Yes, and now suppose if I go for this approach, guys, if I go for this old approach, what I need to do is user is equal to new user. I need to create the user object manually, and I need to set the data user dot set UID. I need to pass the UID here and UID. Can I pass the UID as a string value directly?
No, sir.
It is an integer. Then what I need to do here?
Integer dot parsing.
Integer dot
Parsing.
parseInt of UID.
UID.
Now next one, user dot set uname.
Uname.
User dot set uname. That uname I need to supply. Next one, user dot set user phone. User dot set user phone.
Long dot parser. Long dot
To
parser.
set that string value directly, I need to set the long value. Long dot parse long of uphone. Long dot parse long of uphone, I need to set it. Are you guys clear with this code?
Yes, sir.
Can I say this is the extra code that I am writing if I don't use Spring form binding?
Yes.
Okay. I'm capturing the data from the form by using request.get parameter. After capturing the form data, I'm setting the data to the object, because in the Java, everything will be represented in the form of object. At the time of setting the data to the object, I need to take care of the typecasting also. User ID will come as a string, but actually my object is expecting in the integer. Phone number is coming as a string. My object is expecting as a long value. So do I need to take care of the typecasting also?
Yes, sir.
I need to
Yes,
take
sir.
care of the typecasting. This
Yes,
is
sir.
the problem if you develop a web application by using servlets. Okay, can I say this is a servlet style to develop the web application?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Exactly. Yes.
Manually, we need to capture the form data and we need to convert the form data into object format. Manually, we need to capture the form data and we need to convert that data into object format. Okay, but if I go for form binding concept provided by Spring MVC, am I writing any piece of code to capture the data and to typecast the data, or directly it is taking care of that part and giving me the object directly?
Directly, it is giving us objects.
Directly it is giving the object. So inbuilt logic is executing in the Spring MVC, or inbuilt logic is not executing in the Spring MVC.
Yes, executing.
Inbuilt logic is
Inbuilt
executed.
logic is executing in the Spring MVC. Now tell me what logic is executing inbuilt for this method when I send a request?
The same logic, whatever we have done.
Whatever we have written programmatically, manually, whatever the logic we have written, same logic is executing internally when we take the object as a parameter.
Yes,
So
sir.
what will happen is, whenever request comes to this method, whenever request comes to this method, Spring MVC dispatcher servlet is going to receive the request. Whenever we make a request for this method, dispatcher servlet is going to receive the request because it is going to act as a front controller. It is going to act as a front controller. Now, that front controller should call our method. That method is taking two parameters. One is user object, second one is model object. Already we know purpose of the model, that is used to send the data to the UI from the controller, leave it. First parameter is the user object. Now, in order to call this method, dispatcher servlet should pass the user object. In order to call this method, dispatcher servlet should pass the user object. Now, so here, what the dispatcher servlet will do is, it will create the user object, dummy object. It will create the dummy user object. But before passing that dummy object as a parameter, dispatcher servlet will check, do we have any data for this object in the request scope? Do we have any data for this object in the request scope? So in the request scope, it will check that what are the keys and values are available. There is a key with UID. There is a key with UNAME. There is a key with UPhone. Okay, there are three keys are available in the request. Then it will go to this class. It will check the variables. These class variables are matching with the keys in the request or not. If this class variables matching with the keys in the request, then it will get the key value. It will store to this variable. It will get the UNAME key value, it will store to UNAME variable. It will get the UPhone key value, it will store into this variable. For example, instead of UID, if I give it as a user ID, instead of UNAME, I will give it as a username. Instead of UPhone, I will give it as a phone number. I will give it as a phone number. Forget about this piece of code. I commented it. All right. Now, form data will be binded to this object, or form data will not be binded to this object now. Guys, come on, tell me. Form data will be binded to this
Will not
object, or form data will not binded to this object?
No, sir, will not bind, sir.
Will not bind. Why it will not bind?
Because that does not match.
Variables is not
Settlement status.
The keys which are available in the
Keys are
request.
not matched.
The keys which are available in the request, the variables which are available in the model class are not matching. Let's try this. Load form. Then, okay, clear the console. Clear the console. Check it. Save user. What values I'm getting? Come on, guys. What
Null
values I'm
values.
getting here? Null
Null
values.
values.
Null values. All the values are null in the object. Why the values are null in the object? First of
These are
all,
not matching.
now
These are
listen
not
carefully.
matching with the form.
Listen carefully. I'm filling the data in the form and I'm clicking on the submit button. Who will receive my request?
Dispatcher servlet.
Dispatcher servlet.
Servlet.
Dispatcher servlet is going to receive my request. So dispatcher servlet will call this method. Does this method having any parameter, or this method doesn't have any parameter?
Yes, have.
Having parameters.
This
It has
method is
two
having a
parameters.
parameter. How many parameters are available for this method?
Two parameters.
Two parameters are available. One is user
Object.
object. Second one is
Model
model
object.
Now, so dispatcher servlet should create the user object and it has to pass as a first parameter. Dispatcher servlet should create the model object and it should pass it as a second parameter. Okay. When the dispatcher servlet passing user object as a parameter, it is going to check, is there any data available in the request? Is there any data available in the request? Okay, in the request, there are 3 variables available. User ID, username, user phone number. Okay, it will check. In this class object, variable names are what? Variable names are matching or variable names are not matching?
No, yes, now match.
Not matching.
Now matching.
Not
Earlier it
matching.
was not matching. If the variables are matching, will it capture the data and will store the data into this object?
Yes, sir.
At the time of storing the data, it will check the data type also. User ID is a integer, so it is going to convert that. It is going to convert that string user ID to this integer and will store to this variable. It will set the username as it is because name is a string value. This variable also string data type. It will store it. But phone number coming in the number format. Okay, string format. But it is expecting in the long format. That string value will be converted to long value by using long.parseLong method. So this is called form binding. Now, do you understand how the form binding is working here? Guys, do you understand how the form binding is working here? How Spring MVC is taking care of the form binding?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Sir, we understood.
It is providing form binding, not only form binding, it is providing flexibility also in the form binding. It is providing flexibility also in the form binding. What do you mean by flexibility in the form binding?
If
Reading,
any
converting.
variables is not like strings, then automatically it will convert into based on that variable.
Okay.
Based on the
So
data
based
type,
on the
it will
data
convert.
type of the variable, based on the data type of the variable,
Based on
it
the
is
data type,
converting
it
the
will
data.
convert, sir.
Based on the data type of the variable, it is converting the data into particular data type and it is storing into our Java object.
Java object.
Are you able to understand?
Yes, sir.
Sir, can you explain
Sir,
typecasting?
in front of user, can I pass at the rate request body user and
You
then
can pass it, but it is optional here, right? Even though you are not passing request body, the data is binded to the object or not.
yes, yeah.
Ashok,
Somebody is asking.
here from in farm we have keys, right? Those keys has to
Match with
must
the variables. Match with the
must.
variables in your Pojo class.
Is there any other way to we can match it, like so instead of same case we are maintaining so we can do it in any other way?
No, it should be matched.
It should match, sir. Then only it can bind it, right? It should
No
match.
other way.
No other way. It has to match.
Can we say this is a DTO, like DTO data transfer object?
You can call it as a DTO, you can call it as a domain, you can call it as a Pojo, whatever you want. BO, VO, something like that.
So there is nothing like @column.
That is entity class, sir.
So here we do not have any such annotation.
Yeah, no, we don't have any such
We are not
annotation.
working with database now.
Yeah, there is no such annotation. Just your variable name should match with the name of the field. Name of the field should match with your variable name. Then only it can bind it.
In normal Spring MVC, we will use iterate model attribute. Here
Then I
not
will tell you,
required.
sir, when to go for model attribute, I will tell you. There is a scenario for model attribute annotation.
Okay, sir.
Sir, can you explain typecasting once?
Typecasting means here we are submitting the form data. Okay, user ID is what? What is the nature of the user ID? Is it a string or is it a number?
Number.
What is the nature of the user ID? Number.
Number.
Now, from the browser, I'm entering the data and I'm submitting. The data will transfer over a network. Today, that UI is available in the My Machine. Project is, backend code also available in My Machine. Now you are using Facebook. Facebook you will open in your project, but where the code will run?
In the server.
In the server. So data is transferring from your system to that server through network or not?
Yes, sir. Serialized.
Now, when the data is transferring over a network, every data, whatever you enter, it will go as a string. Okay, network doesn't know that it is a long value, it is an integer value, it is a string value. Network knows that everything is a string. Okay. Now, when the string value you receive, can you store that string value? Can we store that user ID 101 as a string into this variable?
No, sir.
No.
Because it belongs to what data
Integer.
type?
Integer.
But what format you are getting from the network?
String format.
String format.
Do you need to typecast it or not?
Yes, we need to
Yes.
typecast.
Manually, how to typecast it? This is the way that you are going to
Integer dot
typecast it. But instead of we are doing this logic, Spring MVC executing this logic. It will capture the data, it will typecast the data, it will set the data to the user object. The user object it is passing as a parameter to our method.
Okay.
Got it?
Yes, sir.
Fine. Any other questions, anybody? How form binding is working and what is flexibility in form binding? So theoretically, when I am explaining the Spring MVC advantages, I told you these 2 points. So Spring MVC supports for form binding. Along with that, it provide flexibility in form binding. Practically, did you understand what is form binding and what is flexibility in form binding?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, one more doubt. Instead of user object, we can directly write the variables, right? For the method parameters.
Write it. You can, but suppose my form having 20 fields. Can you write 20 parameters for the method?
No, but data binding will work, right? With the same name.
Yeah, will work. Will work. Data binding will work. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Hi, sir. When dispatcher, how dispatcher service will decide which object we need to create? Like we are passing user model, right?
Based on the date, here we are taking
So
user object. So
it
are you
will look
are
at
you
the.
sir, hold on. Am I giving the class name or not?
Yes.
The directly it will create the object for that class. So what is the confusion here? My method is taking one class object as a parameter. So dispatcher servlet will create the object for this class, will pass that object as a parameter by setting the data. How it will set the data? If the key name matching with the variable name, it will set the data.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anybody having? Yes, anybody having any other questions?
No, sir.
Good. Guys, today with this I'm stopping. We'll continue tomorrow. I'm getting a little bit throat pain. We'll continue tomorrow, guys. So please practice this example. We'll come back tomorrow. So if you want, I will share one of the video to go through, or else tomorrow I will explain the concept. Which one is comfortable?
Sir, share the video, please.
I will share one of the video just in the free time. Go through that video, guys. Okay. Please complete that video before coming to tomorrow's. I will just give you video related to our next concept is form tag library. So introduction video I will give. Example we will do in the class tomorrow. Okay. I will send you a mail for that, guys. Thank you. We'll continue tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
So sorry, guys. I'm leaving a little bit early today. I joined a little bit late and I'm leaving a little bit early. So tomorrow.
No issue, sir.
No issue, sir.
Sir,
The request body will discuss, right, in future? @request body.
Yeah, we will cover that. We'll cover that.
Okay, sir.
So could you check in the notes and the workspace in
Sure.
GitHub?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.